Hey guys, Tyler here with the Kingdoms trading card game, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys how I make cards for the Kingdoms trading card game. Now this video is going to be perfect for those of you that have a game that you're already working on, but this will be valuable for those of you that want to make your own game, but you just don't know how to make your own cards. How do you start? And so I'm going to give you my tips and tricks, or my process for how I make cards. Alright, so my first tip is coming up with the ideas and concept. And where this predominantly takes place is in my little art sketchbook that I have. Now here in this art book, or this sketchbook, whatever you want to call it, I come up with just basic concepts of what the armor and the clothing and the buildings and the colors of what these kingdoms and villages will look like. And then also from there, what I start to do is, because I have a map that I have drawn of my game, and what I start to do is I start to imagine, okay, what would a group of people or the civilization of the buildings look like if they were in this particular area. And so just from there, I start getting a groundwork of how I want things to look. But I also have other ideas going in the back of my mind, which is stuff that I start to figure out a little later on. So my first tip is coming up with your concepts. Just start putting stuff down. Just little scribbles, they don't need to be perfect, just rough ideas to get you an idea of where you want to go. That is my first tip. Tip number 2, or process number 2, is making an Excel spreadsheet, or just having somewhere where you keep track of all your information. So what I begin to do is, now I have my binder, which is something that I'll talk about again in another video. I have talked about it before. Is that for this kingdom, or for this set, what I first do is I come up with kind of a set overview. How many cards do I want? What are some of the new abilities or new elements that I'm going to add to the game? And how is this set going to function? And then once I start doing that, I start coming up with names and coming up with stats and just rough ideas of how I want the cards to play. I don't come up with everything at one time, but I just start getting a groundwork for, in the way that the Kingdoms trading card game works, how is this kingdom going to play? How is this kingdom going to play? One thing I will point out is sometimes coming up with names for cards can be a little difficult. Now it's easy to come up and say, oh, this card is just going to be called Strong Soldier or something along those lines. But how do you come up with unique names, like in my game, Furbish, Cluedace, Winterton, Linford? How do I just pull those names out of thin air? Well, actually what I do is quite simple. I just write down random words. So for example, the word calories. And then I see what words can I just create out of this, and do any of them stick? So for example, I wrote down the word peppermint, and out of that, I got peamint, pint, permin, and nimmerpep. And see, some of those names I might like and stick with, and I could use them for a kingdom, for a village, or even for a card name. So that's one way, if when I'm starting to look at this huge Excel spreadsheet, I'm like, man, I'm running out of names, I'm running out of ideas, I can start to do that there. My next tip is having your art square. Now the way I do my art is I like to see everything all together at once, and I'm actually really excited because I have almost completely filled this art pad. This has 3.5 sets of cards in it. There's a couple blank slots, but eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, let me just get it out, this huge art pad. And so just in one page, I'm going to be able to see pretty much a whole kingdom. So that way I can kind of look at the art and how everything works together. But what I do for right now is I take my square, and the reason why I have this is because I have figured that this is a good size, that I draw this picture, and then when I put it in my art program that I use, I just shrink it down to fit in the box of the cards. But this is what it looks like. I just draw my square, and then I draw my art in there. Now I'll go ahead and flip to the back where you can kind of see. What I do is I just get the cards prepared. So I just draw the square, and I also write the name of the card. And then sometimes if I need to know who a specific card belongs to, I'll write that down as well. And then what I begin to do is I just do some sketches, get some rough ideas. Now, my process that works best for me is I like going through and sketching everything with pencil first. And that for me kind of gets me motivated, and I'm always making lists of stuff and checking off boxes of how much progress I've made. I don't like just doing one card at a time, so I kind of like doing the sketches first, or at least one page at a time. So for example, this page is basically fully sketched, so all that's left to do is to go through with a fine liner the final details, and then add some color to it. And then this page is done. And this is a great way for me to kind of just chew through the set, especially, you know, when you're making trading card games, there's a lot of things that you have to draw. Also too, the reason why I kind of like this size, and this is roughly 2.5 by 3.5 inches, something like that, is any bigger, now you're having to draw larger and larger pictures, and I just have a hard time doing that, especially when you're doing a trading card game. And usually for a lot of us, it's usually just us doing the art, or maybe you have a friend or two that's helping you out. And so this is what I like to do, give you a reasonable size to draw in where you can do detail, but it's nothing too crazy. Now, this is kind of a sub thing to my point of my art squares and making my art, is lore in a trading card game is something that is super important. I have this little journal here that I write down lore stories with, because I like story, I like lore, especially when you have a map drawn for your game. The goal of your game is to make it come to life and feel like you're a part of the game. So when you're playing the game, you kind of have attachment to this card because you know the story behind the card. And one thing that helps with this is that when you're drawing art for cards, you can have a difficulty of not knowing what to put in the background. Now there are some great homemade trading card game creators that don't have anything in the background and they look great. For me, I love having stuff in the background, but I don't do that for every single card that I draw. For example, I'll show you if I can find one very quickly. Some cards are just generic, like for example, this card right here, it's just a generic colored background. But that doesn't look bad. And even for this, like this guy is like looking on a cliff and it's just a generic sky and a cliff, but at least there's a little bit of background, there's something, but it's a little on the bland side. Now, one thing that's nice with the lore though is you can think of the story in the game. So what's nice about that is that it starts to give you an idea of how can I fill up the background. For example, in set 2, the kingdoms of Silvermore and Cluedace were released. And the way the lore plays out is that the kingdom of Silvermore is a more dominant, more powerful kingdom, and they kind of abuse the kingdom of Cluedace. They kind of push them around because Cluedace is a smaller village or a smaller kingdom. So for example, I drew this Silvermore card, and for those of you that are familiar with the Kingdoms trading card game, this is kind of a sneak peek of a set 3 card that's coming out, Moore's Resilient Comrade. Anyways, in the background, I included characters from the village of Cluedace, and so that gave me a way to fill up the background. And what's also really cool too, when you're trying to draw with story in the background, it also gives you some really neat ideas. So here's another spoiler. This card right here is going to be part of set 3. This is for the next Borum kingdom, the kingdom of Aflan, which I partially revealed in my last vlog that I posted. You should check that out. Well, the king for Aflan is sitting in this throne right here, but sitting across from him is a king of another kingdom that already exists, the kingdom of Silvermore. I won't say any more after that, but it starts to develop stories, so I can go from this art pad back to my lore journal and start to write some stuff down, and it's really cool. I guess the last thing that I'll point out is that, for example, when you have your lore and your story and your characters that you're thinking of, you can reuse people and multiple things. So I needed a reflection of some sort, so because that was the name of the card, Shimmer. So rather than just drawing some generic person, I decided to just reuse a particular style of characters, which this is from the Kingdom of Cluedace again, looking into this water. And so that's how it works out, and that's what gives me some ideas for drawing cards, and especially having some dynamic backgrounds. Next, when it comes to working on the card art, the next thing is the pictures. Now, it's very simple. All I do is I get my little phone that I have here, and I just make sure I have plenty of light, and I just take the picture, and that's all I do. Now, the reason why I do that is because I do all of my cards digitally. So I get them printed out by the game crafter, so I have to do stuff on the computer to put them together. So that is what I do. But if you are someone that is not doing that, then you need to figure out how you can draw your cards just within your card template. So you can make a template and just draw your cards on there, which that is totally cool as well. The next thing that I do, and I'm actually going to turn my camera around for this, is I have an art program that I use. Now, for the longest time, I used to use what is known as Pages on Microsoft. Now, here's another card sneak peek, even though the art isn't done. Actually, I'll jump over here. But I take pictures of the art, and then what I do is I simply drop it into this box right here, and that's how I make that. Now, for me, I have since upgraded to a program called Affinity, and I have been able to recreate the template that I made on Pages, or what you could do on Microsoft Word. And all you have to simply do is just make your template, and you can plug in everything that you make. And then from there, you go ahead and you convert your stuff to a JPEG, which you then put on the Game Crafter to upload your cards. And so that, for me, that is how I make my cards for the Kingdoms trading card game, from the idea of coming up with the concept to eventually getting it onto the computer and onto the Game Crafter to order. I am curious if there's anything that you want to know of how I do it. Please drop a comment below, and I would love to make a video about that. I do want to make some videos for just how to make your own game in general, so kind of expand beyond the artwork. Also, how to make your own gameplay videos and TCG videos for your own channel. So I have all these ideas that I want to work on, but I definitely want to hear from you. What's something that you want to see? Before I end this video, I do want to end it with a Bible talk, and it's just the very simple notion of make sure you guys are spending time with Jesus. It's not because we have to, but it's because He wants to have this because God wants to have this living relationship with us. And I have noticed, especially during this week, at the time we're recording this video, I have noticed such a transformational just experience or going about my day by just spending some very real time with God in the morning. You don't have to spend time with Him in the morning. That's just what works best for me, and that's what I like to do. And it changes my day. It gets me feeling good, and it gets me ready for the day. So in case it's a rough day, I'm ready to take it on head first. And if anything gets a little too difficult, I can just spend some time with God in that moment and say, God, I'm having a really hard time, but I know You're with me, I know You love me, and I know You'll take care of me. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to keep in touch with the channel. And whatever time of the day that you're watching this video, whether it be the morning, evening, or night, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks.